The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is The Loud List, where our random, rowdy, and raunchy band of misfits create top 10 lists of life's most insane shit. Be scared. Nothing is off limits. So congratulations.
You just made the list!
I'm the music guy CJ playing, and this is episode 5 of The Loud List. You saw this gentleman with episode 4, and this is episode 5. He's back like a bad case of herpes. You know, go away, but it always comes back. This is Mr. Jeremy Bryant. And as always, he'll give you the rundown on who he is and where he's can be found.
That's right. And that's funny because I was thinking herpes too when you said it. But yeah, as you all know, I am the host of Paranormal Normal and Maniacal Music Musings, as well as the co-host of The Asylum with Harley and Joker. And you can find me basically on random podcasts popping up here and there.
Nice.
Like a bad case of herpes. So yeah.
Yeah. Aggressive herpes.
I try.
Complex 69. Anyhow, tonight, for the last show, you saw us do the top 10 Nicolas Cage. Which was an interesting thing. I made me go down a rabbit hole because, as I stated, I had no idea that Nicholas, or that the man had done so many movies. But tonight, another rabbit hole, little bit of nostalgia. Gonna go back into the day for the top 10 best 70s TV shows, according to us. This is not an inclusive list or an exclusive list. This is merely our opinions. So with that said, we have some honorable mentions.
Oh, God,
so we're going to go ahead and get those out of the way before we get into the top 10 lists. So, sir, please give your honorable mentions.
All right. Well, as I told you before, there are some of these that go from the 70s to current day. And I'm going to group like 5 of these together because they're all kind of the same category. I grew up watching a certain network on satellite TV at my grandparents' house in Florida over the summer for like the whole summer. So those 5 shows are Jeopardy, The Price is Right, Wheel of Fortune, The Newlywed Game, and The Match Game. Because I love game shows, especially 70s game shows, because they were dirty and they were funny. Like they got away with shit back then. Guests getting groped by the freaking host and whatnot. Like they got away with shit back then. So
Hollywood Squares was the best.
Oh, it was. It was. Hollywood Squares, fucking Bruce Valanche, like, oh my God. But I mean all the shows I mentioned and probably other ones that, well, actually, I don't know. I went through a list of all the 70 shows today, so I think those were all the, actually, no, they weren't all the game shows, but they're the ones I watched that are the most popular ones that kind of stuck around. I could have brought other random ones up that I've seen episodes of, but nah, these are the ones that stuck around for the test of time. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure every single one of these is on today in some shape.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like, what the hell shows were on that are still around? And
well,
I didn't think about that.
I would have gladly had Doctor Who in the list, but that started in the 60s, so I couldn't.
Yeah. Price is Right is another one that started, I mean, even before the 70s, but
I was looking at a list of shows that debuted in the 70s by year, and it was on one of the years as a debut, so it had to debut in the 70s.
Price is Right?
Yeah, they had to have.
I thought The Price is Right started in the 60s. Or maybe I
I,
don't know. Maybe it was the 70s. I thought it was the 60s, but I know my grandfather, who's 98 years old now, and my great grandfather before him.
1972, Price is Right started.
Okay, so that's okay. But I know no matter what you were doing, even after my grandpa retired from General Motors, um, you started your day, whatever you were doing, lunchtime was 11 o'clock because you sat at the table, you had lunch, and you watched The Price is Right. It was literally like almost a religious thing with my grandfather was 11 o'clock lunchtime so that he could watch The Price is Right. At 12 o'clock when The Price is Right was over, lunch was over, you go back to work doing whatever you were doing. But, it's just, I'm
Yeah, I
sure even today, you know, he's probably still.
I mean it. Yeah, that it was a when you stayed home from school sick, you watched Maury, Jerry Springer, and Price is Right in the '90s. So when you
Yeah,
stayed home from school sick, that's what you were doing. So I've seen more episodes of Price is Right than I can recall. So I mean,
yeah.
I can't say I've checked out the Drew Carey version too much. As much as I love Drew Carey, but it's not really his show, so I don't care. But
He's
Bob
not
Barker was a
bad.
legend.
Yeah, he's Drew's not that bad. I will admit that I was skeptical at first, but he's actually cut out for it. You know,
Well, oh, I mean, I loved his sitcom and I loved him hosting Who's Line. So I
yeah,
mean, he has that hosting ability. I knew that, but it's not the same thing where he could do like comedy during the show like he could on Who's Line. So I
he's
mean, it's
pretty
a different
funny.
world.
He's pretty funny during it. Okay, is that all of your honorable
Oh no
mentions?
no. Well, that's a
You know,
majority of them. That's a majority of them. I just wanted to get the game shows all grouped together. My other honorable mentions, I have three other ones. Sanford and Sons an honorable mention, only because I didn't really watch too much of it. My grandfather on my dad's side would watch it all the time. He thought it was hilarious. I didn't pay much attention when he was watching it. I watched some episodes. I understand. I get the humor. I love the humor of it, but it wasn't one of those shows I watched all the time, so I didn't want to put it in my top 10. And there's a lot of other shows, so I didn't want to put it in my top 10. Same goes for this one, Archie Bunker's Place, because you'll see. I'll get to that. I'll get to my top 10 more, but Archie
so
Bunker's Place.
are you talking the spin-off Archie Bunker's Place? Are you talking
Yeah,
the family?
yeah, obviously a spinoff
Okay,
because it's yeah. I mean,
just making
it was a
sure.
good. Yeah. Oh God, I would never confuse the two. Archie Bunker's Place was a good show. It didn't have it was a spinoff and it acted like a spinoff and it didn't have the supporting characters in every episode to help it be amazing. But I enjoyed it when I saw episodes of it randomly. I didn't get to watch it too much either because it wasn't on as much as the other one. But my last honorable mention was actually almost my number 10. But after my list was all done this morning, but when I got home today, our number one show I meant to check on, and it did come out in the 70s. So I had to add that to the list. So this one got pushed down to an honorable mention, and that's Bigfoot and Wild Boy.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one, so I
A
will have.
it's a basic it's almost like a wolf and cub type show. Uh, a Bigfoot finds a baby a young child in the woods and raises it to be his own, and basically they have to fight UFOs and aliens and other monsters and other cryptids that come and try to terrorize
Hmm,
humans. They're kind of protectors of humans.
I'm gonna have to check that one out because that one went completely over me.
It only lasted a couple seasons, and I would never know about it if I wasn't into the paranormal. But
Right, I get that, and um, I've got a
because that's
couple.
what
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
trust me, it's hard to find.
Yeah,
It's not one of those shows that they show everywhere. It only lasted two seasons. It can't be syndicated. It didn't have 100 episodes.
So I have a couple on my honorable mentions list that are on there for no other reason than they only lasted like 2 or 3 seasons. Very short lived. The very first two, which absolutely would have been in my top 10 had they not been shows that had 2 singular seasons. Um, the first two are Life and Times of Grizzly Adams and BJ and the Bear. Um, Shows that I watched religiously. Still love those shows, but 2 single seasons, they were done. So you can't really, you know. My other ones are The Incredible Hulk, Welcome Back, Kotter, Taxi, Scooby Doo, Three's Company, Laverne and Shirley, Hawaii Five-O, Adam 12, The Love Boat, Good Times, and Kung Fu are my honorable mentions.
Some of those being your honorable mentions kind of fucking scares me.
I got some really good ones. I think I have a great top 10 list, and it's pretty fair, all things considered. But I'm sure yours are going to be, you know.
Laverne and Shirley on honorable mention is almost insulting. I didn't have it on my list at all. I could have easily. I freaking really enjoyed it, but I was like, I had to draw the line somewhere. And Laverne and Shirley was just below that line. It was enjoyable, but I didn't like religiously watch it. And then can't think of the other one you mentioned that really like shocked me. Oh, Three's Company. How dare you? How fucking dare you?
So
that honorable mention.
Here's the thing. Laverne and Shirley is an honorable mention. It wasn't one I would have watched by choice, but it was on immediately after one of my top 10s. So you kind of watched it automatically because you watched.
Yeah, I get that.
It was they were like a combo. And I'm probably giving it away because anyone from that time period will know what Laverne and Shirley was on with, though.
For all those Gen Zers out there, back in the day before streaming, you had no choice but to watch what was on TV. And literally, it's basically the same as just letting the next episode button on Netflix run its course because you're just too lazy to get up and change channel. So
we didn't have remotes. You had to get up and physically click, 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 click the channel.
That only lasted in my childhood. That only lasted in my childhood for about 4 years, and then we got a TV with a remote. But
oh shit, no, dude, that was all of my childhood. Was 3 channels. We had Channel 5, which was NBC. We had Channel 12, we had Channel 5, which was NBC. Channel 12 was ABC, and Channel 25 was CBS. Which are the 3 channels we got, and then I think I was about 14 or 15. A Fox debuted, and then that was Channel 66, and that was a huge deal because Fox showed things that the other 3 channels wouldn't have dared show. So, it was
some random ass numbers for only having 4 channels. You'd think they'd be like 2, 4, 6, 8.
You would have thought that, but when you lived 35 miles out into the country, where literally like everything was an hour's drive away. It was a 20-minute trip just to go to the grocery store, 30 minutes if you needed the hospital. It was, to go to the city, or what we considered the city, was Flint or Saginaw, and that was an hour's drive. So I mean, I grew up way out in the dirt, dude. Like, it was like Kansas, Nebraska type country type of shit,
the furthest neighbor was 10 miles away.
No, it was about a half a mile to our closest neighbor. But like what you saw in Twister, the movie Twister, that's basically like what I grew up with. Okay, like like sounds like what you saw in Twister.
That's what
So
my wife want. That's what my wife wants to live, for fuck's sake. But
it's, growing up, I hated it, and I couldn't get out fast enough. But now that I'm old, I look back on it and think I'd give anything to get out of the city now and go back to it, because I miss the peace and quiet. I miss the just not having people up your ass constantly. So I get
does
it.
it does it still exist like that even, or did they build it
Oh
up
yeah.
over the years?
No, it's the town I grew up in. There was 884 people when I was growing up, and today there's 875. So,
Oh, geez.
about 30 extra people in the 30 years I've been gone, and most of the same people, same families. Children haven't inherited the houses they grew up in, and um, I believe it or not, the teacher that I had in kindergarten just retired 2 years ago.
Jeez.
She was a teacher for 51 years. Um, so, I mean, that's a type of town I grew up in. Like, you taught forever. My dad, he's in his 54th year driving semi. So, you just kind of work until you die, or they force you out. You have a choice, I guess. I'm sure Mrs. Jablonski, she didn't want to retire. They probably forced her out and said, "Look, you've been here as long as a goddamn school building. Get the fuck out." Um, Nobody liked her. If you've ever seen the Matilda movie,
Yep.
the nasty ass principal, that was when I saw that movie. I swear to God, when I saw that character, I was like, "Holy shit! Who the hell knew Mrs. Jablonski?" Because that was literally Mrs. Jablonski. She's a 6'4" German woman, built like a house. She was terrifying, mean as a goddamn junkyard dog. And, I just was like, shit, that is Mrs. Jablonski through and through, man. Like, just, big fucking shot put throwing German bitch. But, anywho, before we turn this into a 6-hour episode, those are my honorable mentions. The number 10 for you. What do you got at number 10 on your top 10 1970s show?
Yeah, my number 10. I watched it on reruns all the time as a kid on Nickelodeon. My number 10 is Land of the Lost.
Okay.
Classic. I I could throw a number of episodes to clear my fucking mind. It's a classic. Almost Jurassic Parkian type show before that was a thing. So I mean, it was, and it almost made you believe that if you dug a hole, you could go back in time and go live with dinosaurs.
it it's That was one of them shows where they had terrible costumes,
Yep.
but it was also kind of it was almost Gilligan Islands in the way that you went back in time, but you had this cave where you had this like computerish type of thinking mind hive and all of that. That was a show that I had forgot about, and yeah, that was one I watched. It was on Saturday mornings, I think, or Saturday afternoons.
It used to run on Nickelodeon like at 8 o'clock in the morning, not like as reruns.
Yeah, it was, and the opening was really cool.
It
The
was. I mean, the song.
rafting, falling down the waterfall into the land.
There's a Family Guy where Peter sings the theme song to it. It's freaking hilarious. But
Nice. I haven't seen that one. Um,
oh, it's an old
Number
one.
10 for me was a show that my father loved. Um, and I watched it pretty regularly. I went back recently, I think last year, and I watched all of the seasons, and realized in watching it, like, wow, this is a really good, solid show, and had a lot more action than I remember it having as a kid. It was Rockford Files. Um, so
I've been told it's amazing and that I should watch it. I think I've seen it occasionally over my life, but just not one of those shows I ever got into. Is there a supernatural element to it? If I'm being, I think it's why people told me to watch it because there's some kind of supernatural element to it too.
No, it was just James Garner just played a detective, California detective. It was, um, you know, but it was one of those shows I saw all the time as a kid. Never really stopped to actually sit and watch it like we watched other shows. Um, but you know, it was a solid show, with good acting, and it had a lot of the cool elements of shows like Starsky and Hutch and that type of shit, you know. And it kind of surprised me. Like I didn't really expect a lot from it. I wouldn't call it the greatest show ever, but you know, it was a solid show, and it had some very cool elements in it. So it made my top 10 just because you know it had quite a few seasons and um, had that iconic opening and had that really cool pickup truck, that step side Chevy pickup truck that the old man drove. You know, so that was my number 10. Uh, number 9. You got number 9.
I almost hate the fact that this is number 9, but it should be higher. But it's the '70s, so it's a tough competition. But number 9 me was Different Strokes. I grew up watching that, and I freaking loved Gary Coleman. I loved Gary Coleman as Arnold Jackson. It was the funniest freaking. It was just one of those shows where the kid had the best lines, and I mean, one of the main actress in it came over from another one of my favorite shows, so it had that tie-in. It was a spin-off to begin with, and it was a really good show. I mean, and it kind of taught you about race at a young age, about the differences in class and all that, and it made you kind of see things the way that kids don't always see things.
So Different Strokes was one that we had this discussion before we went on the air. For those of you listening or watching, um, TV shows that whether it was a '70s show or an '80s show, Different Strokes was one I did not add to my list because though it did start in 1979, the majority of the show was actually in the '80s. So I
Yeah.
had it as more of an '80s show, considering it had one season in the '70s and all the rest of the seasons in the '80s. So I did not add it
But
to my list, but I
it
it would have been
it had the spirit of a '70s show all the way through.
kind of, yeah, I
That
guess,
can't be sick. It had that '70s can't be sitcomness.
yeah. And I don't disagree with it at all. I mean, it definitely is a great show and another show that we watched a lot because you know, um, Mrs. Garrett sort of, you know, ended up with her own thing, and she was, you know, kind of took on a life of her own, and you had some really great additions at the beginning, and then at the end, introduced us to talking about '90s TV series. That it was a show that introduced us to Danny Cooksey, who, if you're not familiar with that name, look him up. He has done the voice of more of your '90s characters than you even realize. '90s and 2000s cartoon characters.
I I
Um,
know the name. I just can't think of what the hell he's done.
uh, oh man, he's done. Well, he started in that, and then he was in the Terminator movie, and then he did
Hmm.
Salute Your Shorts. He was in Salute Your Shorts.
That's where I
And
know him from. Okay, yeah.
yeah, the redhead. Um, he had the short-lived metal band that Steve Vai started called Bad for Good. Um, and he's done voiceover work since then, and he's done God, like he's done so much voiceover work. His resume is really kind of crazy. I looked it up a while back, and
Like
he
Tara
did
Strong.
voices I didn't even realize he had done.
Yep.
So um, definite proof that you can you can make a small fortune with your voice. So good 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 show for that. Number 9 for me, probably show that a lot of people have higher, but was what got me interested in doing this, in doing radio stuff. Was WKRP in Cincinnati. Funny show. The turkey episode is still one of my favorite TV episodes of all time. So, yeah, WKRP in Cincinnati.
Never really watched it. Never really. No one I knew really watched it. So it just was one of those things I never got. I knew it existed. I just never got into it.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a goofy show, but it had some funny episodes. The Thanksgiving episode where they throw the turkeys, um, you know, yeah, where he throws the turkeys out of the helicopter, thinking they're big crates of turkeys, and he thought they were like live turkeys. And when he started dumping them, we realized that they're frozen turkeys. So we're throwing like frozen turkeys out of a helicopter and like pelting people with frozen turkeys. So
Jesus.
yeah, it's you kind of have to watch the episode to get the gist of it, but it was really kind of crude at the time. Like it was very over the top for that time, as far as black humor. So number 8. What do you got at number 8?
This one, I'm gonna say this for a lot of them. It feels like it should be higher too. But this was a show I watched in reruns of Nick at Night a lot. So, and it gave us one of the most beloved characters of all time. And number 8 is Happy Days. Because the Fonz. I was obsessed with the Fonz when I was a kid. I was obsessed with the Fonz. So, and I mean, it's a good show. And I mean, come on, there'd be no Weezer's Buddy Holly video without it. So, I love Happy Days was a great freaking show. It really was. It had some corny ass moments like the Jump the Shark episode and all that, but I mean it also gave a lot of spin-offs. I mean, it gave Mork and Mindy, it gave Johnny
Laverne
Loves
and Shirley.
Chachi, Laverne and Shirley, it gave so many spin-offs
Happy Days
and
is the reason we watched Laverne and Shirley, because it was on immediately after
yep.
Happy Days, so it was just
And let's not as the Church of Peter Griffin reminds you, let's not forget Richie's older brother that walked upstairs in episode 1 and never came back down.
Yeah, and in characters that you didn't even realize at the time were in the Jump the Shark episode, or when he jumped his motorcycle. Pinky Tuscadero is Susie Quattro, famous female rock star. She's still performing today. So and Henry Fonz has gone on to
Everything. He's in
yeah,
everything.
he was behind MacGyver. He produced the MacGyver series, the original MacGyver. He's with the Water Boy and
Oh, he's in like he's in most of Adam Sandler's movies at some point or other. He has small roles in like all Adam Sandler's movies.
I guess I never noticed. I just remember him in Water Boy. But
And I mean he's been in so freaking many movies, so many TV shows.
Yeah.
So many TV shows he plays small roles in, like
yeah. Had a very dark character he played on SVU for an episode. So him and John Ritter both played like really dark characters, considering what they were famous for in the 70s.
They did. And I mean he like I loved him on Arrested Development. Like he was freaking hilarious on the Arrested Development. He's done a lot of great like small roles where he plays like shady ass characters that do like stupid things. And
yeah,
I mean he's just a great actor overall. Everything he does is hilarious.
Yeah, he's great actor and great producer. So
And it gave us Ron motherfucking Howard, who made some of the best movies ever. So come on now.
gave us a lot more than you realize were, and I do have it on my list. So we'll get to mine eventually. Number 8 for me was another show that probably higher on some people's list, but I remember it always being on TV, but never sat down to really watch it. Number 8, I have the Brady Bunch.
You never watched the Brady Bunch?
It was, it was one of them TV shows that I remember it being on, but I never sat down to actually watch it.
It's not even on my fucking list. But I was obsessed with the Brady Bunch as a kid. Like it just was. I look back at it was just such a stupid show. It was so freaking tongue in cheek and stupid,
Yeah.
and very very close to incest. The whole show, like the whole show.
Well,
So many cues of like. I mean, they hit on it in the Brady Bunch movies they did in the '90s, but
yeah. Like I said, it was one of the shows I always remember it on. Everyone else watched it. I was one of them kids who there weren't a lot of shows that made me sit and actually
well,
at it.
ADHD is a serious thing.
I was just a badass kid. I don't think it was ADHD as so much as I was just a little asshole. So
Okay.
If something wasn't on fire, blowing up, or somebody wasn't getting shot at, I generally didn't stop and pay attention to it. I was, I always been an action type of thing.
See, that's one of those shows that when you're a kid in the '90s and every night you have to be inside, it's dark out, and I mean, if wrestling wasn't on, I was watching Nick at Night because why the hell not? And because I lived off Nickelodeon like it was a freaking drug, and I would watch Nick at Night every night, and Brady Bunch would usually start off Nick at Night back then, so I would always watch Brady Bunch, and oh my God, I could hear Marsha in my head every day of the week.
Yeah. Now, see, I watched Brady Bunch more as an adult than I did as a kid when it was on. Like the reruns, like you're talking about, yeah, I would sit and watch those.
Yeah.
So most of my knowledge of the Brady Bunch is from the reruns later.
It's funny watching it now, knowing everything you do about the actors.
Right. Yeah.
Like I love the scene in Family Guy where they're watching the Brady Bunch and they get they had the big screen TV and they're like, oh, now you can see the whole picture from the Brady Bunch, and it goes out in bed and you see all African American males behind Carol and Greg.
Yeah. 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 Number 7. What do you got at number 7?
This is one of those shows that I was a huge fan of when I was like, according to my parents, when I was like 2 to 4. This was my show I had to watch whenever it was on Nickelodeon and reruns. But it was my number 7. Well, I guess it's time to start the music because it's the Muppet Show. I love the Muppets from a young age. When I was a baby, I'm told I watched Sesame Street, and they turned it off, I would get very upset. But my mom had to watch the same VHS recordings of Sesame Street that she recorded for me, like probably 100 times a freaking week. So it's Muppet. A natural progression goes to Muppets next, and I love the Muppets. I love the movies. I'm not a big fan of any of the movies they did with them up until like the 2000s ones. I did not like a lot of the 90s, 80s movies they did. I just don't know why. I'm just not into it. Muppets Christmas Carol's all right, but it's just not great. But I mean, I love the Muppet Show. I love the music. I remember going to Universal Studios and going on the Muppet, or actually, no, it was MGM Studios, but that was a thing still. And you go to the Muppet, like 3D show. Like, it was freaking awesome. So I love the Muppet Show. It was funny and it had great guest stars.
The Muppets were awesome. I didn't have them on my list. For some reason, I thought that was in the 80s, but no, it was the 70s because I remember 2 particular episodes that I remember of the Muppets. First one was the one that Kenny Rogers was on because that was one of my grandpa's and grandma's favorites. The other one was an episode that had Alice Cooper.
Yep. I'm here. Fucking light. But
I was gonna say your light went out.
motion sensor.
Dark.
But no,
the
yeah,
other
I mean,
episode was with Alice Cooper. I remember that one particularly because, we were all Alice Cooper fans.
oh, I believe he performed with Dr. Teeth in the Electric Mayhem.
Only Women Bleed, and it was just one of them songs that it was like, it was such a crazy thing. So great call on that one. That was one that I missed totally. I obviously did not do my research as well. So number 7 for me was a show that I loved because it made me want to ride a motorcycle, and it was had cool people in it, and it was Chips.
Chips,
yeah. I just, again, he had that cool step side. In fact, I think it was the same truck from the Rockford Files that they used. It was that cool step side Chevy, and just chasing bad guys down the highway on motorcycles. Just, for a while, it made me want to be a cop, and I realized that, yeah, not really cut out to be a cop. So, I got Chips at number 7.
It's one of those shows I never thought would be interesting, so I never watched it. I saw the movie with Dane Cook, pretty fucking funny movie. But I mean, who was the guy who played the lead actor in that? Who was the lead actor in that show again? What's his name? He did the commercials for all the
Eric Estrada and
yeah,
Wilcox were
Eric Estrada. Yeah, I never liked his personality. Like I never liked his face, never liked his personality. So it's kind of was like, eh. But eh.
He was the high-strung one. Larry Wilcox played the sort of more straight white guy. And then, of course, the police captain, he was actually a Mormon during the whole thing. So he was always sort of played very limited because he was particular about not being cast in any scenes where they were drinking or smoking or anything like that. Being Mormon, he had his religious things that he would not be in certain scenes, like if they were drinking beer or if they were smoking, if they were in a bar of any kind, he wouldn't be a part of that. So almost all of his scenes were always shot at the police station per se. It was kind of this weird thing of, he must have had pull in Hollywood, because
Yeah.
normally if you're an actor and you start making those kind of demands on a TV series, you get shown the door pretty quickly. So.
Yep, you do.
So anyways, my number 7 is Chips. So number 6, what do you got at number 6?
This is the show I almost forgot about that I had to look up and make sure it started in the 70s, and it was completely in the 70s. It only lasted 3 seasons, but I was on a quest back in during COVID, 2020, during COVID. I went back and using a cartoon website that I found, I started watching all adult animation series from the beginning of all adult animation and I wanted to go to the end, but I never got that far. But the first show, or one of the first shows on the list, was started in 72, and it was called Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. Very short-lived show. It had a non-animated version as well that only lasted like a couple episodes, but it was actually the father from Happy Days that voiced the father character in the show, and it's basically like Family Guy if Family Guy came out in the 70s. So I loved it. I watched all of it. I watched all 3 seasons of it on the website I had. I thought it was hilarious. It was very 70s humor. it kind of reminded me of like an old school version. It basically opened the door for Family Guy, F is for Family, and all these shows that exist today to exist. So it was a good show. I mean, very 70s, but it was a good show. I enjoyed the shit out of it. I laughed my ass off a lot of times at the father. So
Yeah, it was very short lived. I did see that, and my research didn't ever really watch it. I knew about it. Other friends, people watched it, but um,
I mean, you probably would love it actually. Being a dad, you probably would love it.
probably I've noticed quite a few on the list that I was kind of like, okay, I need to go back. This sounds kind of cool. I need to go back and check it out. So I bookmarked where I was doing the research for the shows so that I can go back and because I love old stuff. I would rather sit and watch old stuff than new stuff.
Oh, that's why I watch old horror. That's why I watch old horror movies for my brackets all the time because it's better than
Yeah.
watching new stuff. So
And that's the thing. That's why I love like going on with you guys because I get to see that type of stuff as opposed to this. I'm not a fan of modern horror movies.
they're not
Movies
great.
like, movies like Annabelle and shit like that. The found footage type stuff.
Oh,
I don't
I hate
like those type of movies. Like
I hate found footage horror movies with a fucking passion.
yeah, and it's just like modern horror movies just are kind of like I don't know. I
There's
just can't.
the only ones that are really good nowadays are based off of old IPs.
You
And
know,
those are the only ones that are good nowadays is ones that are remakes of old IPs that they managed to make halfway decent. And or they're just the same idea as old horror movies just kind of
yeah,
restrung and redone. Like
yeah. Like
these
I
original
miss,
ones nowadays are garbage.
yeah. Like nothing beats a good slasher. You got to have a good horror character. Like you got to have. It can't just be like some random thing or some spirit. It's I want a Jason. I want a Chucky. I want uh, a slumber party massacre.
Yep.
I want a tangible bad guy that you have
I
to escape and
I
whatnot.
I I want a guy that has to fucking kill girls at a sleepover, but has to play rock music on his guitar he kills people with between each
You
killing.
know, yeah. Like the best one, the best. I hate to say this, but the best modern horror movie that I saw was one that was very tongue in cheek. Um, but it was a really great character. It was the movie Uncle Peckerhead.
Never heard of it.
Oh my God. It's dude, if this movie was made originally, Sid Haig was supposed to play the character, but he died before they could get it
Oh,
filmed.
that.
So they
He
had
does.
so they had someone who was similar to him play it, and the guy played the shit out of the role. But he's this so these young kids have this punk band. They want to go on tour, but they can't afford it. So this guy shows up and says, "Hey, I got this van. I'll take you on tour, blah, blah, blah." So they go on tour. And, the guy introduces himself. "Just call me. I'm Uncle Peckerhead." So they're like, "Uncle Peckerhead?" So of course, the girl, the bass player, she discovers that Uncle Peckerhead at midnight every night turns into a flesh-eating zombie, essentially. So she walks into a bathroom and sees, him basically eating this body. And then it just turns into them trying to get away from him and whatnot and whatnot. And you got to see the movie. It's really
I'll
it's
double
a,
check it
it's a
out.
2000 and I think it's like a 2016, 15 movie,
Uh,
but it's got 80s. Oh, it's
I'll
got
double
80s
check it.
horror movie written all over it.
I mean, honestly, that's what I'm saying. Like the only good, really good horror movies I've seen that came out in the last 5 years, I'll say, or actually, nah, 3 years. I'll say 3 years because I don't want to go too far back, but was easily Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or The Mean One. Because they're based, this thing they're doing where they're taking old IPs that they can now mess with and making horror movies out of movies that weren't horror movies
Yeah.
is fucking amazing. I fucking love it. The
I
Mean
am.
One, The Mean One is one of the funniest freaking movies I've seen in a long time.
You'll laugh at Uncle Peckerhead, and you could tell watching this movie that it was a role written for Sid Haig. Like it's just so obvious that it was written for him.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like his type of role.
I like that. I just downloaded that Popeye the Slayer Man one. I haven't watched it yet, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that one just because I've always thought Popeye was a serial killer in essence. So
I want to see the Bambi one.
So number 6 for me, getting back on thing, I have the Jeffersons at number 6. So
Not far off, but okay.
It would have been higher had it not been for the rest of what I have on my list. And the rest of my list in the top 5, it went back and forth other than what my number 1 was. So the Jeffersons, number 6. Let's move on. Number 5, what do you got at number 5?
This might be the one that most people might not have on their list, but I started watching this show when I was a kid. It would be on random channels early in the morning. Like at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, if I was up for random reasons on weekends that early, I would sit and watch this show, and it kind of fueled my love of the paranormal at a young age. And my number 5 was Kolchak, the Night Stalker. It was a spin-off of the original Kolchak, and it only lasted like maybe 2 seasons. I'm kind of thinking only a season, but it didn't last long. But he was hunting a werewolf, he was hunting a vampire. Like, it was, for a kid that was into that shit, it was amazing that, like, there's actually a show about someone trying to, it was almost like Supernatural, but like a 70s version of it with one character, and it was like a hunter thing almost. It was kind of cool, but I enjoyed it, so I had to put it on my list because it's one of those. Kolchak the Night Stalker. Kolchak. I mean, the Kolchak show ran for the real Kolchak show ran for like freaking 5, 6 seasons at least. Like, it was a huge show, but Night Stalker was like a spin-off they did where it was all supernatural stuff, him getting witches and shit like that. It was like, it was different. It was different, but it was done well. It was done like very good detective stories, and like him starting every episode off and narrating it to himself. Like, it's just classic. It's classic, and I honestly want to go back and watch it again as an adult because I haven't seen it on anything.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'm not familiar with it, but okay. So I have the Jeffersons at number 6. At number 5, I have the show that the Jeffersons was a spinoff of.
Too low.
All in the Family.
Too fucking low. Too fucking low.
Nah, I'm going to disagree because the other 4 I have above it I think are solid top 4.
Well, that's also
one you're gonna disagree with because it was in the honorable mentions, but it was a show that we watched religiously. So, All in the Family is my number 5. So, but again, completely understand if somebody has it way higher. Not gonna debate that. So, number 4. What do you got?
All right, my final 4 are all to be expected ones in a way, but my number 4 is the Jeffersons because it was one of those shows I discovered on my own that I saw George Jefferson first on the show he came from, but I love freaking George Jefferson. I forget his real name for the life of me right now. I love his character. Come on, Wheezy. Like, oof, you honky? Like that's literally how I learned the word honky from watching The Jeffersons. But but I love The Jeffersons. It had the it had that edgy comedy for the 70s that its predecessor had, but it was for African Americans, which I as a white boy who grew up in suburbs and literally had one African American student in his elementary school until like fourth grade, I did not have that around me to see the culture and hear the talk. So to have that exposure at the Jeffersons, because it was instant enough, my parents didn't care if I watched it. So I I laughed my ass off at it, and I mean, them showing up on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to buy the mansion in the final episode was freaking hilarious. Like as one of the potential buyers, like
Yeah, it was it showed the flip side of the coin from All in the Family, but it was very edgy. You know, that and All in the Family both
and,
were
and it
very,
had
very
one of the
edgy.
best. It had something on the family didn't though. It had one of the best theme songs for television ever.
Hmm. It was yeah. I did with with the folks. We did the top 10 TV themes, and it was very high on both of our lists for the TV
In
theme.
my original TV theme songs bracket, it made it pretty far every fucking time because
Yeah,
someone did it because it's and I
yeah.
actually in
It's
I have a list. I have a list for a new TV theme songs bracket that is going to be long as shit.
nice.
It's going to be multiple. I mean, I have an animated TV show one that's like I think 9 parts, but
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the regular TV theme song one is going to be a lot more than that.
I
I don't know where or when we'll ever get to it, but it's going to be there.
so number 4 for me was one you had higher up, but number 4 for me was Happy Days. It was one of the shows that I did watch. Uh, the Fonz, you know, everybody wanted to be Fonzie, or me, I was more of a Ralph Melf type. I liked his sort of, you know, smart assy. That was more like what I was as a kid. Was, you know, I was always the comedic relief of all my friends. I had friends that were stoners. I had friends that were jocks. I was the smart ass. I was the one that was always kicked out of class for making a smart comment, for fucking with the teachers, for doing something or another that was inappropriate. Um, so, you know, in our group of heathens, I was very much the Ralph Melf type character. Um, so, yeah, I got Happy Days at number 4. And another show,
Yeah,
you know, just an
I,
awesome
I
theme
mean,
song.
it only is as low as it was on my list because of the competition it had to face.
Right.
But
I understand. And it's not this was not an easy thing, because even my
no,
honorable mentions, there were a lot of them.
this this isn't Nicolas Cage movies. There's not great ones then shitty ones. There's a lot of great ones in this topic, and then a lot
Yeah,
of shitty ones too. But there's a lot of great ones.
yeah, more great ones than. I mean, it was a golden era of.
Oh, there are a lot. As I learned today, there are a lot of TV shows that existed in the '70s I never fucking heard of. So they had to be pretty shitty if I never heard of them.
I mean, that was the '80s too, but I mean, all right, number 3. Where do you got it? Number 3.
Well, I already kind of had the spin-off for this on my list, but my number 3 had to be Facts of Life because as a young boy, it gave me a female perspective on the world that I wasn't asking for and didn't know existed. And it kind of, I mean, I thought some of them were cute as shit. So hell yeah, like Blair can get it all day back then. Nowadays, but back then, Blair can get it all day. And Facts of Life was it was funny because it had the kid element being at school. So like you got that part if you're a kid, and then it was just funny. And seeing Mrs. Garrett was classic always. Girls, girls, girls.
Yeah, see, that was one. That was another one with different strokes that I did not put on my list because it debuted in August of '79, and then it ran till '88. So I had it. I had it on my '80s list, um, as opposed to my '70s list. Um, so technically, yes, it was, I guess, a '70s show, but you know, um, but yes, definitely would have. If we were doing an '80s list, it would be in my top five. Um, Classic show, again, theme song that was undeniably catchy. Um, you know, you take the good, you take the bad, you take it all. Facts of life. Um, so yes, I would not disagree. Um, Number three for me was in your honorable mentions. Um, but we watched it religiously because to me it was one of the funniest shows on TV, and massive fan of Red Fox. My number three is Sanford and Son. Like I said, I rarely
You
miss
big,
an episode.
you big dummy.
Um, just there were so many episodes. To this day, I can quote, you know, the episode where he ate the 7-day old collard greens, and he's like, "Son," he's like, "they're coming for me. The buzzards are circling over the house." And then Esther walks in. He's like, "Oh God, the head buzzard is in the house." You know, just there was so many episodes. Whether it was the one where Grady was growing weed in the yard, or you know, um, the play between Red Fox and Wanda was so legendary. The way that they were best friends in real life, but they played, characters where they would have tore each other apart, and that was what was great. And Red was such a phenomenal actor, uh, aside from the comedy stuff. And Harlem Nights is probably one of my favorite all time movies. Um, so I got Sanford and Son at number three. And it's
I
only at
mean,
number three because my top two are two of the greatest
if
TV series of all time.
if I actually watched it, I know I'd love it. So I can't disagree with that. I know I'd love it. I know I would if I actually watched it. So like all the way through. It's Red Fox is fucking a legend. So I would definitely love it.
Um, like I said, it's only at number three because my top two are, to me, two of the greatest TV series ever, regardless of what decade you're looking at. So what do you got at number two?
My top two. I mean, there are two shows that my grandparents used to record off TV Land and Nick at Night for us and on VHS, and I must have seen every episode of both these shows multiple times that way. And this is my number two only because of what number one is, and I can't knock number one down. My number two is 100% Three's Company. It's before I even knew what it meant, what being gay meant. Seeing Jack Tripper pretend to be gay was one of the funniest things I've ever fucking seen in my life. And I mean, Chrissy, oh my God, a young prepubescent me found out things about his body by watching her. So, I mean, Three's Company was one of the greatest freaking shows of all time. Like, it's just so funny and perfect and classic. It's just amazing. The jokes are freaking phenomenal. Both landlords, Mr. Roper and Mr. Furley, were freaking hilarious. I the show, I mean, and Larry was one of the greatest side characters of all time. So I mean, the girls could have almost left the show, and I still would have freaking found it hilarious and loved it. But that was kind of the point, so they couldn't leave the show. But I freaking, I love it. It was a perfect show.
Yeah. And even so, the fact that they found two different sets of landlords that were both perfect in their own aspects. First with the Ropers, and then with Mr. Furley. You know, was phenomenal. Because Mr. Roper was always hilarious as the sort of scheming thing, and then you had her with her outrageous outfits, and it's always trying to you know but Larry was great, and you know Lana Falana, and so many great
Oh, I mean,
characters.
and the fact that anybody Killa eventually used the Regal Beagle in the beginning of one of his freaking raps is hilarious. Where he actually acts like he's performing at the Regal Beagle. Like I love it. Like it's just that show is classic. That show is so classic.
Yeah, and it was a show that we watched pretty regularly. um like it was an honorable mention for me only because, like I said, there were shows that I was kind of more, I guess, attached to psychologically. Um, but I can't disagree with it being in anyone's list that high up, because it really was
I mean,
you know,
and put it this way, my grandfather, one of the most religious Protestant Christians I've ever met in my fucking life,
yeah,
would let us watch Three's Company as kids, like 6 years old and up at least.
yeah,
And every time they would do something that was like sexual as shit, and because maybe he didn't think we got it, but as we got older, he would just be like, "Yeah, they're screwy," and like laugh at it and then move on. Like it was just like things you wouldn't expect him to let us watch. He let us watch. Like that was the main thing. Was like let us watch all Jack's freaking and Larry's freaking comics
yeah.
and stuff about the girls. That he was just like, that's screwy.
So my number two was a TV show that I probably watched more than any other TV show, because right along with the lunchtime was at 11 o'clock, so you could watch Price is Right, was my grandfather's rule of dinner was at 4 o'clock. Not 3:59, not 4:01, 4 on the nose. And you sat down and you had dinner, and of course, where the table was set, the TV was kind of in the corner of the living room, right in view. So you watched Little House on the Prairie. It was on every day at 4 o'clock. Rule number 3 at my grandfather's house: it didn't matter what you wanted to watch. If Michael Landon or Andy Griffith was on, that's what you were watching. So whether it was Little House on the Prairie, Mayberry, Matlock, Touched by an Angel, uh, Bonanza, didn't matter. If it had Andy Griffith or Michael Landon in it, that's what you were watching. Um, so I have seen every episode of Little House on the Prairie probably 3,452
I
times.
I read all the books. I never watched the TV show. I don't think once.
Yeah. It was not something that I would have watched personally.
Just no choice.
Just it was always on at dinner time. It was like peanut butter and jelly. Like I don't remember ever having a dinner as growing up. I don't remember ever having a dinner where Little House on the Prairie was not in the background. Um,
Yep.
So it was just one of them things to me. And I watch the reruns now, and all of this talk about they're rebooting it. Netflix is rebooting it, and they're going to do a new version of it. And I'm just like, that's a hard piece to mess with.
I
It
I
being
mean,
a
as someone,
period piece with the costumes, the characters, it's not something that can easily
I
be
mean,
recreated.
it's based on the books, and the books are pretty simple. They could easily be recreated.
Mm, if you've seen the fact that you haven't seen the TV show, believe me when I say Michael Landon created a show that it was very complex, it was very deep, it was very detailed and consistent in what the characters were, who they were, and the relationships they had. So it absolutely will not be easy to recreate. And because of the way he created, now the TV show took a lot of liberties from the books. So they're saying we're going to go back to what the books actually were. So maybe that will play into it being a bit more whatever. But you know, it was a very detailed TV show, and they touched on the thing that was crazy about Little House on the Prairie was they touched on a lot of shit that during that time period was very taboo, very dark. The one of the girls being raped, physical disabilities, blindness and deafness, alcoholism and child abuse. You know, I mean, they touched on some topics that were quote unquote very woke for that time period. And that's why when somebody said recently, oh, they're going to turn it into a TV show that's just woke. It was pretty goddamn woke for its time period. Like they touched on some pretty dark shit for a show that was supposed to be family oriented, you know. There was a fucking rape scene in one of the episodes of a 12-year-old girl. And that was not something that you saw on TV in the 70s, man.
That's dark as shit for 70s. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, you know, and there was this whole buildup over like 2 or 3 episodes of who the rapist was. It was almost like this who killed JR type of thing of, you know, they didn't show the person, but they showed like the rape, and it was like from the backside, and it was following the clues and who heard what, who saw what. And I mean, he turned it into this like story arc over a couple episodes, and it was kind of like, holy shit, it was pretty fucking dark for you know a TV show.
And for a TV show about the 1800s, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't a show that shied away from very realistic situations, you know, shit like that. So it's not going to be an easy show to redo.
I wonder if that show is streaming anywhere.
Oh yeah, it's actually I because I looked it up. It's actually in the top 3 for the most popular streaming right now. That it has millions of views a day. Like it's literally, there's a whole revival happening with it. And that's the reason that they're trying to reboot it, is because it's so popular again.
I think in this day and age, everybody wants to go back to that time.
You know, it's one of them things, man, that I can't disagree with. But anyway, it's number 2 for me, Little House on the Prairie. It's just, like I said, I see why people like it, and you know, really great character. And
I might have to watch it.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing an episode where we're going to be recasting it. So definitely watch it, check it out, because I created the list. We're not going to do every single character, but we're going to do like the main 8 people that were there from the beginning, mostly all the way through it. So there's going to be a few characters that were huge parts of it, like Almanzo, but Almanzo doesn't show up until season 3. So I don't have him on the list because he's not an original. So, you know, you're going to have like Charles Ingalls, Laura Ingalls, the Olsons, the preacher, the doctor, you know, in Uso talk, the day ones, basically. And we're going to be recasting those 8 or 9 main characters. And
I'll have to watch it between movies.
Not as easy as you think.
I'm sure.
So Number one, who do you got as the greatest 70s TV series? And pretty sure I probably know, but we'll see. See how.
I'm pretty sure everybody fucking knows by now if they're listening to this that if they don't know, they're fools. But I mean, there's from the moment before I even made this list, there was no show. For the time you mentioned doing this episode to me, there was no show that I knew was going to take number one besides this one. And it is the greatest fucking TV character of all fucking time. I don't care what anybody says. It's gotta be All in the fucking Family. Archie Bunker is a god. Archie Bunker is a fucking god of men. I will say it again. He was. I learned how to be a man, how to treat people from watching Archie fucking Bunker treat people. And
That's why
yes,
you're an asshole. No, just kidding.
I was just gonna say that, and yes, he may have been an asshole and a racist at times. I mean, I don't think he was racist. I think it was just the time. And I think that's what most were at that time. But
no, it's very much was. That's exactly what it was. You know, he wasn't racist.
Mean,
he didn't know any better. That's what he.
And the actor was a good guy, so that's not the case. But
Carol
it's just
was brilliant actor.
But I mean, it's just he taught me how you should treat your wife, or how you should treat your kid and your neighbors and everything else. I mean, he was a very wise man. He didn't do things always the right way, but he was a wise man with his logic. And he worked hard, and he just wanted to come home and sit in his chair and smoke a cigar and watch some TV and call his son-in-law a meathead. It was a great time. It was a great time to be alive, and I mean, and his relationship with George Jefferson was one of the most inspiring things ever, because we may not always like each other, but at least we know we don't like each other. So it was great. I can't, and it was the other show that my grandparents, it was the main show my grandparents videotaped and watched with us every Saturday night sleeping at their house. And I've seen every episode more times than I can count. Aside from Edith's voice, it was the best show ever. Edith's voice will drill a hole through your head. But oh, Archie! Like fucking one of the most annoying voices of all time. But it was just such a good show. I mean, and it gave us freaking oh my God, what's Rob Reiner? He was Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner, one of the greatest directors of all time. Like it gave us. It's another show from the 70s that gave us a great director. I mean, Sally Ann Struthers is sitting in a warehouse in Mexico getting fat, but
she's actually, believe it or not, she's lost a ton of weight. She actually.
I've heard.
She actually looks very similar to how she looked on the TV show now.
I've seen pictures of her. She does, but I always have Starvin' Marvin stuck in my head.
You know, and that's the thing. Like she did an interview recently, and I didn't realize it was her because she'd lost like so much weight and everything, and she looked so good that it was like, wait, what? And I was like, God damn, like, you know, she went from being, she was very portly. Let's use the term portly. You know, she was pretty good size at one point, and she's back down to, you know, a nice fighting weight, let's say.
She definitely got back in shape, but it's. I mean, it was. I still picture the Starvin Marvin episode of South Park.
I agree.
Funniest things ever, but I loved All in the Family. It was one of the greatest TV shows of all time. I mean, it taught me so much. And the first show to ever have a flushing toilet on it, as minuscule fact as that is, it's still a record. And I just love that when that toilet flushed, it meant that Archie was coming downstairs and me had better get out of his chair. Like, it was classic. It's classic. I honestly want to rewatch that whole series too, because it's just such a good show, and it had such a great storyline. And the fact they took in a orphan kid, like once their own kid moved out, they took an orphan kid at the end of it and raised her. Like, it and that truly showed Archie Bunker's like sensitive side. Like it was a great show. It it really was just one of a kind, and they never can touch it because they can't. Like a lot of the shows you mentioned today, they will never touch them because they know better.
I mean,
They
it was
they
a
did
show
those.
that. Go ahead. Sorry.
They did that like I forget what they called it, but they did that reenactment of like All in the Family and the
Yeah.
Jeffersons and Good Times, which was with today's actors, which was it was it was all right. I'm not gonna say it was amazing, but it was
Right.
all right. It was well done. But they never could actually redo any of those shows and fully capture what they had in the 70s. They couldn't.
Yeah.
They'd
Yeah.
be
There
too
definitely
woke.
were shows that I wouldn't.
They'd be
You know.
too woke nowadays, or they just couldn't get. They wouldn't get the right actors.
Yeah. I think All in the Family and the Jeffersons, more than it being to whatever, I think you would not be able to really find actors that could truly capture the spirit of what those characters were. To find somebody to play Edith, for example, would be a really monumental task. To find somebody to play Michael the way Rob Reiner did, again, would be very, you know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
I will say
it would be,
they it was part of the plan originally when they started it, and they did do it well. But they basically did it with that 70s show. They basically made a new version of All in the Family with the
and
same character types.
and Married with Children as well was very
But I
all in
don't
the.
think Married with Children did it as perfectly as that 70s show did.
I you know, true. I think Al had a lot of the qualities. Um,
Just
more,
not the delivery, not the sophistication.
the toilet thing was a running gag. Him coming down from the toilet with the newspaper under his arm, um, was sort of a running gag. Married with Children, had, um, was one of the I think was one of the main sort of nods to All in the Family. Um, but yeah, that 70s show was very much a nod to it. And there's a couple other ones that had touches of it here and there. Um,
I
but
I
Carol
feel
Connor,
I feel like Red and Kitty perfectly nailed the Archie and Edith. I feel like they perfectly nailed those characters.
yeah. And if you were gonna redo it, Tanya is probably as close as you're gonna get to an actress that could play Edith. Um,
Yep.
you know, realistically, I mean, it's such a small pool of people who could play that character. Even Archie, they're so iconic that, again, you really are walking into sort of a landmine field, um, because if you don't do it exactly right, people are just gonna fucking tear you apart. Um, and the hyenas are gonna be sitting at the gate just waiting for you to fuck something up so they can.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
You know,
look what they did.
you did this wrong. You
Look,
did this wrong. You didn't get the staircase in the right place. The kitchen is the wrong color. you know,
I mean, look what they did to Rob Zombie for the Munsters. So yeah.
like, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, you know, um, yeah. So my number one, I went a different direction, but very much for the same reasons as All in the Family. This was a one of a kind show, massively beloved, the highest rated final episode of all time. A show that made me laugh and cry at the same time, sometimes for the same reasons. You laugh so hard you would cry, but at the same time, some episodes that were really deep. My number one was MASH.
You're gonna kill me. Never have watched a single episode of it.
This,
My
this was
my
a show
uncle
that
was obsessed. My uncle had every DVD they put out, but I never could get into it.
it was a show that my uncle liked a lot, and my great grandfather loved. So my great grandfather watched it, and I didn't pay attention at first, but as I saw more episodes of it, Alan Alda's character was so, he always had the best, most snarky remarks about everything. And then, the way that he was always fucking with Frank, and then you had, Houlihan, and um then you had the death of Henry Blake, where he finally finishes his thing and gets on the helicopter, and the helicopter crashes and kills him. So that was like shocking, because you're like, I think, 4 seasons invested into Henry Blake, to have him die, and then you know General Sherman shows up with his horse, who is sort of the older, cantankerous one. And then you had Jamie Farr, who played the cross dresser, constantly trying to get kicked out of the army, but they would never let him go, because they knew that he wasn't really anything. He was just trying to get out of the army. Um, it was just one of them shows that was so, even when you tried not to like it, it was funny. It was really, they took a subject like war and death and PTSD for the most part, and just kind of turned it on its head and made it funny, made it into situations that were laughable. And that final episode, man, it was crazy. Like, I remember watching it thinking, why am I crying? Like, I shouldn't be crying, and you just bawling your eyes out, because um you know it was really a touching show. And I still watch it. I have the Samsung Plus TV, so it has like um 200 channels
Yeah.
that you can flip through, that are dedicated to certain shows. There's a Baywatch
Yeah.
channel, there's a MASH channel,
Vid,
there's a Little House on
Vid,
the Prairie channel, that you know
Vizio has the same thing. Yeah.
and so, where no matter the time of the day, I can go to channel 1236 and I can get 24 hours of MacGyver, or 24 hours of Little House on the Prairie, 24 hours of MASH, 24 hours of Starsky and Hutch. And you
Doctor
know,
Who. Yep.
yeah,
All the
and
episodes.
I flip through those channels at nighttime. Like once we're done, I'll probably go in there and I'll just see what I want to watch, and I'll find a channel and just watch all the
See,
episodes.
I never watch those channels ever. There's too much other shit I have to watch, so I just never get a chance to. So
Um,
I know I hadn't had a chance in years to just sit there and watch something just to watch something.
I just do it so I fall asleep, basically. But
I my wife doesn't do my since I've been with my wife, she doesn't do the falling asleep with the TV on thing like I used to do. So
no,
when I was
I turn it off before I fall fully asleep. But
I don't know. I since I was from the time I was a teenager until the time I was in my early 30s, I would put on. I mean, I would leave on TV originally, but in the later years, I would turn on South Park or Family Guy on streaming, even though I've seen it 1,000 million times, and just let it run while I fall asleep. And
yeah,
then I'd have the sleep timer on the remote
yeah,
set for like a half hour, and so it would go off at some point after I was passed out.
yeah.
And I mean, it's how I fell asleep many years, but my wife prefers the fan, so I haven't done that in years. I haven't fallen asleep to TV in years. I don't think I could do it anymore. Well, that's not true. I fall asleep watching TV all the time, but not on purpose.
I can't sleep with a fan on, so fans drive me crazy there.
I thought that's the way I was in the beginning, but eventually your body gets used to it.
Right. So number one for me is MASH. So that was the top 10 of what we have. Really great list. A lot of shows that can go back and check out. But
I feel
absolutely, between you know
I feel like we gotta do an 80s now, and we gotta do a 90s live action and 90s animated.
You know what? I'm up for that. Like, send me the details. I'm there for it. Like
Well,
that's
I
again.
mean, yeah.
You mentioned doing the conspiracy theory one. I'm doing my research and
Oh.
finding.
Yeah.
I'm really not conspiracy theories. Is being one of them things where I know the big ones, JFK, 9/11, whatnot. But I know there are ones that are far better and far more creative and far more whatever. So I'm doing research so I'm not just regurgitating
Yep.
same old.
Oh,
But
I got a list of a good 34.
that's what I'm saying. So it's not something I'm as familiar with. Um, if you say, hey, do a top 10 list of guitarists not named Eddie Van Halen, that's easy. I can rattle off my top 10, no problem. But as you said, 90s animated series, I'm gonna have to look those up. I'm gonna have to think about that because as far as those, Hey Arnold is about my extensive 90s
Oh,
animated.
that's on the list 100%.
That's
But
what I'm saying. Like that's literally the only 90s animated series I ever watched or paid attention to. Um,
true. You didn't you were grown in the 90s and you didn't have kids in the 90s, so yeah.
I I started the 90s working at Cedar Point um, as an employee, and then I had kids shortly after and became a truck driver. So the
Oh,
majority of
yeah.
the 90s I spent on the road alone in a truck, just driving from one side of the country to the other. So um, there is now a lot of
Oh,
90s shit that I got to watch because
the good old days in 90s, truck drivers and the lot lizards and everything else.
believe me, lot lizards were around long before the 90s.
Oh,
The
I
shit
know that,
around
but
today.
90s
But
was
yeah,
like the last heyday that was the last heyday of them, kind of.
yeah, that was the last decade before Homeland came in and started fucking with everybody and making us do shit that was beyond the um you know it was the last decade where you could actually do the job the way it was meant to be done. Now it's just impossible. um Dad is still doing it. He still bitches and complains about having to do the ELDs and everything now because you know he's been a truck driver since 1971, and he's used to doing the paper shit. So having to type all this shit into this little computer just drives him crazy. And he's like, "I'm gonna retire," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, I've heard that since 1986, but I've yet to see a materialize. You're you're 76 and still out driving this fucking truck, and he'll retire when they force him to retire. Um, I think the fact that he still moves like a 30-year-old is why they let him continue to drive truck because you know he's more athletic than me. You know, I'm 25 years his junior, and he's more athletic than me. So, um, hey, whatever. I mean, anyways, where do they find you? Where do they look up maniacal musings and all the other random ish that you do?
There's no randomness. It's all planned. But you can find everything I do on Facebook as Squatchy Largefoot or the Uncensored, Untamed, and Unapologetic UQ Podcast Collective Facebook group. You can find me on the Gram and XXBaby as at Jungle Bastard. You can find me on TikTok as at Jungle Bastard Podcast. You can also find me anywhere Pod Nation TV podcasts are found. And you can also find me on YouTube as Maniacal Music Musings or Paranormal Normal, the only place to see all the episodes of both shows I've ever done, because changing podcast providers sucks and you lose all your content. So that's the only place you can find everything I've ever done is on YouTube. So if you want to go back through 300 plus episodes of Paranormal or 100 plus episodes of music, go back there. But or you can find us popping up on random podcasts like this one everywhere podcasts are found. Just
Beautiful.
go Google me. I actually come up on Google for the last couple of years. It's amazing, and for good
Yeah.
reason.
Right? Could come up for good reasons as opposed to the top 10 most wanted list. Um, I am happy to say I am no longer on the FBI's most wanted list. No, that's a joke. It's a joke, people. It's a joke. I was never on the most wanted list. I what I was on Pennsylvania's most wanted list at one point for a warrant that I didn't even realize I had. Not the most wanted list, but I was wanted in Pennsylvania and didn't know it. Discovered it due to a background check for a trucking company and was kind of like, what the hell do I have a warrant for?
He was wanted by the Dutch Amish, but yes.
No, you're gonna love this story. I got to tell this story. So I get this background check because I want to drive for Maverick. Maverick says, "Do you know you have a warrant in Pennsylvania?" And I was like, "Why do I have a warrant in Pennsylvania?" Well, you have a warrant. I said, "Okay." So I called Pennsylvania State Police and I said, "Hey, background check. I got a warrant for my arrest. Can you give me information on this?" "Oh, yeah, it's a misdemeanor. Theft of city property." Theft of city property? Never fucking stole anything from a city. What the fuck? Well, you call this number. So I called the number, called the third number. It's Crawford County Courts. And, well, you checked out a Dean Koontz book and a Jimmy Buffett CD from the Meadville Public Library, and it wasn't returned.
Are you serious?
And issued a warrant. Well, we take theft of public property very seriously, and I'm like $20 worth of shit. So I had to literally go to Pennsylvania and go to court because I didn't return this library book and this fucking CD that I checked out. No idea where they even went. Just in the process of moving and, separating from my oldest kid's mom and all that shit. And I don't know, but yeah, they issued a warrant and had arrested me and held me overnight before I could get in front of a judge to answer for this warrant over me not returning a Jimmy Buffett and a Dean Koontz book back to the library. So this is why if you ever hear me say fuck Pennsylvania, that's why I say fuck Pennsylvania. Bullshit warrant. Cost me almost $1,600 in court costs and fines. Over $20 worth of shit. It was completely ridiculous. But yeah. So yeah.
Always return your library books, kids.
Yes. Especially if you're in fucking Pennsylvania. That is why I say I am no longer on Pennsylvania's most wanted list. It was the most random shit, dude. Like, it was, I thought I had like some serious warrant when this background check come. Like Pennsylvania issued a warrant. I was like, what the fuck did I do while I was in Pennsylvania? I don't remember I wasn't arrested. I never got booked or anything like that. Like, what the fuck did I do? But they would issue a warrant for me. And when I called, I was just kind of like, you fucking serious? Like, do you motherfuckers not have a hobby? Like, you literally issued a warrant for me not returning library shit? Well, we take it very serious. And I'm like, I'm seeing that. Like, that's, and then theft of city property. Like I stole a cop car. Like I stripped a copper wire from the city building or some shit, You make it sound so serious. Theft of city property. Like I stole, like I stole the golden statue in front of City Hall or something. It was like,
That's pretty insane.
Yeah. So anyways, as always, you know what we do here? We have fun. We do top 10 lists that rock. And this was another one. Thank you, sir, for appearing. Be well. Treat each other with kindness. And remember that no matter what you're going through, music, movies, and other random stuff can heal your soul.